On July 20th, 1969, Neil Armstrong took humanity's first steps on the moon. It was the climax of the greatest technological competition in history, the space race between the United States and the Soviet Union. But after Apollo 11, the momentum faded. Budgets were cut, ambitions scaled back. The race was declared won, and we've been in low Earth orbit ever since. But what if it hadn't ended? What if the superpowers had kept pushing, kept competing, kept reaching for the stars? Today, we're exploring an alternate timeline where the space race never stopped. In our timeline, the space race effectively ended after Apollo 11. Sure, there were more moon landings through 1972, but the political will and public excitement faded fast. By 1975, the symbolic Apollo-Soyuz mission showed both superpowers were ready to cooperate rather than compete. NASA's budget dropped from over 4% of the federal budget in the mid-1960s to less than 1% by the 1970s. Why did it end? The US had achieved its goal, beating the Soviets to the moon. The Vietnam War was draining resources. Economic problems at home demanded attention. The Soviet Union, having lost the race, couldn't justify the enormous costs of trying to catch up. Space became a back-burner issue. But what if the competition had intensified instead? What if both superpowers saw space as the ultimate high ground, too important to abandon? Let's explore this thrilling alternate reality. In this timeline, the Soviet Union doesn't accept defeat after Apollo 11. Instead, they double down. By 1971, Soviet cosmonauts land on the moon, establishing a small research base. The United States, not wanting to be outdone, responds by announcing plans for a permanent lunar colony. Throughout the 1970s, instead of détente and cooperation, space becomes the new battleground. Both nations pour resources into their space programs. The political message is clear. Dominance in space equals dominance on Earth. Military applications drive much of the funding. Spy satellites, orbital weapons platforms, and the potential for moon-based missile detection systems make space strategically critical. NASA's budget remains above 3% of federal spending throughout the 1970s and 1980s. The Soviet space program receives similar priority. This means massive investments in rocket technology, materials science, computer systems, and life support technologies. By 1980, both nations have small but permanent bases on the moon. These aren't just flags and footprints. They're pressurized habitats where astronauts and cosmonauts live for months at a time, conducting research and proving their nation's technological superiority. The technology spin-offs are incredible. The space program drives innovations in computing, telecommunications, materials science, and medicine, far beyond what we achieved in our timeline. The microchip revolution happens faster. Satellite communications become more sophisticated earlier. Medical imaging technologies advance rapidly. Mars becomes the next target. In 1985, President Reagan announces the Mars Initiative, a crewed mission to the Red Planet by 1995. The Soviets respond with their own Mars program. The 1990s become the decade of Mars, just as the 1960s were the decade of the moon. Before we continue this journey to the stars, if you're enjoying this vision of an alternate space age, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. We explore fascinating what-if scenarios every week. Drop a comment below. Would you want to live in this timeline? Let's keep going. The first crewed Mars mission launches in 1994, a joint American-Soviet mission, ironically. The cost and complexity of reaching Mars finally forced cooperation, though competition for who establishes the first permanent base continues. By 1997, humans walk on Mars, a full generation before anything similar happens in our timeline. The International Space Station is much larger in this timeline, built in the 1980s rather than the 1990s, and it's not international at first. There are competing American and Soviet stations. They eventually merge in the spirit of cooperation, but the initial competition drives both to be more ambitious. Space tourism emerges in the early 2000s, not as a novelty, but as a developing industry. With decades of continuous spaceflight experience and infrastructure, getting to orbit becomes gradually cheaper and safer. By 2010, private companies are launching paying customers to orbital hotels. The moon has several permanent research bases by 2025 in this timeline. Mining operations extract helium-3 and rare earth elements. Some visionaries talk about lunar manufacturing facilities taking advantage of low gravity and vacuum conditions. A rotating crew of about 200 people from various nations live and work on the moon at any given time. Mars has two small bases, one American-led international base and one led by what's now the Russian Federation. Plans for a larger, self-sustaining Martian colony are in development. The first child born off Earth, a girl named Luna, appropriately, was born on the moon in 2019. Asteroid mining is beginning to transition from experimental to commercial. Several companies have successfully captured small asteroids and extracted valuable metals. The first trillionaire is projected to make their fortune from space resources within the next decade. The technology in this timeline is significantly more advanced in certain areas. Rocket technology is decades ahead. We have nuclear thermal propulsion for deep space missions. Artificial gravity research has made significant progress through decades of experimentation. Closed-loop life support systems are highly sophisticated. Space-based solar power is becoming reality. Massive solar panel arrays in orbit beam energy to Earth via microwave transmission, providing clean, continuous power. This helps address climate change more effectively than in our timeline. The cultural impact is profound. In this timeline, space isn't a nostalgic memory from the 1960s. It's an ongoing adventure. Children grow up dreaming of being astronauts, the way they dream of being athletes or musicians. Science and engineering are more prestigious career paths because space exploration remains a national priority. Science fiction is more optimistic. Shows and movies depict humanity's expansion into space as inevitable and positive, rather than the dystopian or stagnant visions common in our timeline. The cultural mindset is one of expansion and possibility. Education systems emphasize STEM fields more heavily. Math and science achievement is higher globally because space exploration provides tangible, exciting reasons to study these subjects. The space generation gap doesn't exist. Each generation has witnessed new achievements in space. However, there are downsides. The continued Cold War focus on space means more resources flow to military applications. Orbital weapons platforms, though restricted by treaties, exist in limited forms. Space debris is a more serious problem with decades of intensive activity. Several near-miss incidents between military spacecraft have brought Earth close to conflict. The environmental impact on Earth is mixed. Space-based solar power helps, but decades of intensive rocket launches have environmental costs. The moon has visible human impact. Mining scars, base structures, and waste disposal sites mar the pristine landscape that captivated Apollo astronauts. Economic inequality might be worse. The enormous public and private investment in space creates winners and losers. Space corporations are among the most powerful entities on Earth, and asteroid mining threatens to destabilize traditional resource markets. Fast forward to 2025 in this alternate timeline. Humanity is a spacefaring civilization in a way we're not in our reality. There are permanent human settlements on the Moon and Mars. Regular missions to the outer solar system are in planning. Europa, Jupiter's potentially life-harboring moon, will receive its first crewed mission in the 2030s. Private space travel is expensive, but accessible to the upper middle class. Taking a week-long vacation on the moon is like taking an around-the-world cruise today. Special, but not unimaginable. Tens of thousands of people have been to space, but we still face the same human challenges. Political conflicts, economic inequality, and environmental problems don't disappear just because we've reached the stars. We've just exported some of these problems to new locations. Would this world be better? In many ways, yes. Humanity would be more united by a common frontier. Technology would be more advanced. The existential threat of being confined to one planet would be reduced, but it would come at enormous cost. Trillions of dollars that could have addressed problems on Earth. The space race ending wasn't inevitable. It was a choice based on priorities and politics. With different choices, we might be living on multiple worlds today. The question is, would we want to pay the price? What do you think? Should we have kept racing to the stars, or were we right to slow down? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this journey through an alternate space age, check out our video on what if we made contact with aliens in the 1970s? Link in the description. Don't forget to subscribe for more mind-bending what ifs, and I'll see you in the next video.